All right, everybody, it's the top of the hour. We're going to get started. Like I said, congratulations for being here on time. For those of you who are here, you get extra credit, extra work, and your production is going to go up automatically. I can tell you that. But my name is John Ruddy. I'm that dentist guy, and I've had the pleasure of working with doctors all across the nation and in Canada as well. And to take hold of their practice and take control of the reins. I don't know if you've ever felt like the practice could be running you, or you wanted just a little bit more out of it, or maybe you're kind of in this state that a lot of business owners are in. It's this kind of this. Well, I know that something is happening. I can feel like some things that are good, but I just don't know where to go next. The reality is, and this is reality for everybody. We don't know. We don't know, right? If we have never been in a business or in a situation or made decisions before, if let's just say something new comes up, it's brand new and you have to discover where to go. And unless we have somebody to kind of guide us and to give us wisdom, then it gets really difficult. And what's really difficult is when somebody wants to guide you but doesn't know how to do it, and they're just kind of dragging you through the mud and stuff. So, in any case, I hope to shed some light today on what numbers in your practice really drive business. And as we were talking about this, I really am excited to share this because everywhere I go, there is a kind of a misconception on what really is most important. Now, clearly, your production and your collection, those are important numbers. But as you know, maybe sometimes your team is celebrating, yay, we did it. Look, we did it, Doc. And you're like, yes, we did it. And you're looking at your bank account going, but we didn't really do it. So, what we want to do is position ourselves with the right indicators. You see, a key performance indicator, all right, is supposed to indicate something. And when you're looking at numbers and they don't tell a story, they don't give wisdom, they don't give guidance, you don't have an idea of where to go next, then we haven't really gotten to that indicator. Okay, and so maybe you've heard some of these before and maybe not, but if you have some note taking device or whatever, or if you want to take some screenshots, I would highly recommend that. I'm going to invite everybody at the end. If you want to, have a conversation about your practice, I can dive into some of these numbers with you. But I think it's really important that you start to understand what the numbers are telling you. Okay, and so let's just dive right into it. First and foremost, let's see here. I want to thank Omni for being our partner, and they've done a great job of partnering with me over the years. I actually met Rod. He's the founder of Omni. And he and I met many years ago. And one of the things I love about just him is he's always been honest. He's been just the type of guy that you could go to for answers. And he created Omni for the purpose of helping doctors to transition their practices. Not everybody's ready to transition, and not everybody who is ready knows they're ready. And what I mean by that is that sometimes we've got this idea in our head that, oh, I want to practice for the next 5, 10, 12 years. And then all of a sudden something happens. And so he really has been a great asset to those he stepped into to help, whether it's brokers all over the nations or transition consultants all across the nation that help practices or have practice owners to take that next step. And so when the time comes, they're a great partner. And in the meantime, we provide content like this. It's stuff that you can utilize in your practice to grow it, so that you can get what you want out of it, which is most important here. So. Like I said, I told you a little bit about Omni, who they are. If a transition consultant reached out to you and invited you to this, I invite you to go back to them to say, hey, man, I watched that video and this is what I thought. This is what I saw. This is what I took away, and that sort of thing. I know they'd love to have a conversation with you about that. You might be asking, who's that dentist guy? That's me. Like I said, I've been helping practices all over the nation, business owners, to really take control of their practice. When you can start to see the numbers, you can start to see what really goes into creating a dynamic practice that is that's sought after from people all over the region. It really starts to get fun. And at the core of it, I just want to spoil everything. We're going to talk a lot about numbers tonight. But at the core of your business, this already, is how you treat patients. If you don't treat patients well, they won't give you their hard-earned money. They won't trust you to say, yes, I want the treatment. They'll go get a second opinion down the road, and they'll let somebody else do the work. And so really everything that we do that drives these numbers is tied to the care and the compassion and the education and all the things that you do to make relationships with patients. So as we see these numbers, just realize there's an art to doing this, and it's not just getting the numbers. You can't just open a practice and hope that it does well, and go through school. You know this. You can't just drill on teeth. You have to connect with your patients, and you have to surround yourself with staff that connects with patients as well. So when you do that, let's talk about what happens. Okay, because when you are able to connect with patients at a high level, you're going to have a direct referral rate of over 50%. And if you're doing it really, really well, it's going to be 70% or higher. Okay. Well, so what is a direct referral? Well, those are referrals from your patients, right? Those are people saying, hey, I went to this, to the dentist down the street here. She's amazing. And I think you should all go too. All right. Now, a lot of the national average you can see here is, for new patients, is about 20 to 30 new patients. And this is okay, but what we've got to realize is that a business is never, it's never staying the same. Okay. You can never open a business. I've heard, doctors say this sometimes, and even business owners of other industries. I kind of want to grow it to a point, but then I kind of want to, just ride the wave a little bit. I just want to, kind of stay the same. I'm tired of, growing and stuff like that. I kind of want to, just let off the gas and that sort of thing. And while it may make sense in a actual automobile, it doesn't really make sense in business. And so you've heard this before, I'm sure, you're either growing or you're dying. And there's no in between. You can't have both. And so you really want to stay in that growth state. Momentum's a funny thing, because when you create momentum, then it's easier to move the whole ship, right? But as soon as you lose the momentum, the amount of time and energy you have to put into revamping your business, getting that momentum again, is enormous. And sometimes, even just the expense of doing that, can be just as enormous. And so you really want to capitalize on the momentums that you have in your practice. And what's interesting is when you get momentum in one area, that can translate to other areas if you let it. But sometimes what we try to do is we start a fire over here and we start to get it, roaring, and then we want to turn around and start a fire over here. You bring all those fires together and let it burn, right? But when you have 50 to 75 new patients, that's when you know you're a growing practice. Okay. Now, when you have 20 to 30, so what's the problem is with this is that you have people leaving your practice every month. All right. I don't care who you are. You could be the best dentist in town. Okay. But you're having people leave your practices. And so let's talk about a little bit about why people leave your practice for a second. Well, some people, unfortunately, are passing away. They're leaving because they can't come back, right? Some people are moving because they're found another job, another city, another state, or parents are getting older, and so they're moving to be with them, or they are the older parent and they're moving to a retirement community. They're losing their insurance. I don't know if you know of anybody that's lost their insurance or even lost a job recently, but there's plenty of people out there like that, right? And so, as we read, the headlines and we see the economy and that sort of stuff, these real things are happening with patients. And yes, some of them don't like you. Okay, there are some of them that you did something, and even in your best attempts to care for them and give them the patient experience that they deserve, maybe something happened, right? But the reality is that we can't just rely on having 20 to 30 new patients a month and to grow. All right. So when you're looking at your practice software, all right, a lot of times if we're not careful, we don't look at the right things. One of the things we need to be tracking every single month is our new patients. All right. This is a practice indicator. This is indicating how well people are experiencing your office. When you have these high numbers, one of two things is happening. Okay. If you have these high numbers because you have direct referrals and you have some outside marketing that you're doing, this is a good thing. It means your practice is ready to move forward and you've got the team around you and the experience that you want to create. Okay. I've seen practices make these numbers, the 50 to 75 or 100 new patients, and everybody's going out the back door. Okay. So if you're not having the patient experience or the amount of new patients in your office, before you go and spend money on marketing, because this would be an indication you need to do a little bit more in terms of inviting referrals or putting money into marketing. But you want to look at your patient experience first. Okay, you want to make sure that it's the one that you want. I talk to a lot of marketers. I get a lot of phone calls from dental marketers. I know y'all don't, because they leave you guys alone, right? I'm kidding, right? But they call me because they're like, hey, I want to get into all your offices that you're working with, and I'm like, okay, slow down. We need to see the proof in the pudding. But I do to have some meaningful conversations. And one of the questions that I ask a lot is like, well, how many phone calls are actually being generated in these offices? And the reason I ask this question is because in many cases I'll call around the different offices in the towns that my clients are in, and I'll ask one question. I'll say, hey, they'll answer the phone. I'll say, hey, how much is a crown? And I ask this question for a couple reasons because I want to know what they're going to say. I want to know if they're going to say, "Oh, we can't say that over the phone," or "Oh, it's $1,700," or or they're going to say, "Well, you have to come in. You have to come in for an appointment first, right?" What I really want to hear them say, well, actually, I want to hear them all say that, but what I want my offices to do is go use that as an opportunity. Okay, every time the phone rings, it's an opportunity to bring somebody into your practice. All right. So when somebody's asking a question about, hey, how much is your treatment? How much is it for your first visit? Or how long does it take? Yada, yada, yada. Those are all reasons to invite people into the practice. And the best phone calls that I have from the most professional, dental professionals, they're actually taking the time to go, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you asked that question. We would love to have you into our office so we could tell you exactly how much it's going to cost. They're inviting me in there. Okay. So the reason I mention all this is because before you look at your number and go, oh, I am at that 20 to 30 mark, or got worse, I'm not 20. Before you go spending all your marketing dollars, look at what's going on at your front desk. Okay, really listen to how they're answering phone calls. Are they inviting patients in, or are they simply putting out fires or answering questions? Because there is a difference, and you want your front desk to be inviting patients in. So that can be a key for a lot of you. Okay, so 50 to 75 new patients means that you're a growing practice, and what you're likely going to see is more revenue and more production over time. All right, so let's get to the next one here. All right. I like this one. This one is, so 25 to $30,000 is what you should be generating per op. Okay, this is net production. All right. So what does this mean? Well, if I have a practice that has 6 ops, right, I have the capacity in that practice to produce $150,000 to $180,000 per month. Okay. So what does that tell me? All right, number one, most offices are probably hovering around the 15,000 mark. I invite you to really get a piece of paper and do some numbers, or you get your calculator out and do some numbers while we do this, okay? You want to know where you stand, all right? The average office is around $15,000, okay? So what does that tell us, all right? It tells us a couple things. Number one, either our case acceptance is low, or maybe the way that we educate patients needs some work, needs some help. Okay, it means that our staff, our team needs some help to generate more production in these operatories. Okay, we're probably doing a lot of single tooth stuff. We're not really listening to what the patient wants. Okay, how many times have you had a patient walk out and they want to go get a second opinion, or they want to just talk to their husband or something like that, and your front office person has maybe given them the treatment plan to walk out with, okay? Or they've given them, like not just the treatment plan for that one visit that they can come back for, but all of the visits, and it's like this massive number, right? So there's a miss in our treatment planning steps. And so when we don't do our case presentation right, we have a lower production per op. Okay, and so what other questions does this answer? Well, some of us are looking at our offices going, well, shoot, should I build out another 2 operatories? I've got some space. I can get a plumber out here. I can get the Henry Schein has offered to come out here and renovate my office and that sort of stuff. So you really need to look at, okay, well, where am I in this marker here? Because if you're not careful, you can throw dollars out the door before you're ready. All right. So any person who is looking at, okay, well, maybe should I move my practice? Right? Should I move my? I've got a lot of people, and here's the trick. Okay, we talked about this last time. If you were here in the last meeting, which I see some of you returning, so congratulations for coming back. If you were here last time, we talked about scheduling, and the reality is you can be busy all day but not make a lot of money. Okay, and that's a problem as a business owner, because it takes money to actually run the business, and for some of you, and I've had conversations with some doctors recently, they're like, I'm paying my staff but I'm not paying me, right? And we don't want to be in that situation, all right? So before we get to that, and we're like, okay, well, do I need to move? Do I need to open up more, space in my office? Do I need to renovate? That's what this number is telling you here. It's also telling you, hey, where do I need to invest in my staff? Where do I need to invest in my team? Or where do I need to invest in myself? Okay. Because I'll say this, we put an enormous amount of responsibility on our team, and they deserve to have a lot of responsibility for the conversation. But sometimes we don't realize what part of the conversation we need to step into as doctors. Okay, as doctors, you carry the weight of being able to share the urgency of the treatment that needs to get done, but you don't share it all. The problem is that if you don't share any of it and the staff is sharing it all, then there's a miss on the patient part, and they don't want to come back for it. Okay. All right. So let's move on here. All right. And feel free as you were going along here, there is a question and answer button there at the bottom of your screen there. You can go ahead and press, the button there and type in a question. I'll get to it here near the end. And so we can kind of, when we wrap up, we'll talk a little bit more about all those. So the next thing is your employee ratio. Okay. Now, this one, again, you can see the average is about 13,000 per employee. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your net production again, and you're going to divide that by the amount of full-time employees that you have. Now, let's just say you've got, 6 staff members and 2 part-time staff members. They each work 2 days a week. Okay. Well, that's going to be, excuse me, that's not doing my numbers right. Okay. But if you have 6 staff members and 2 part-time, that's 7 staff members. Does that make sense? Okay. So you're gonna just kind of divide it by the full-time employees, and you're gonna get a number, and it's probably gonna, if you've got a good practice, okay, then you're gonna be between that $20,000 and $25,000 per employee mark. All right. And what does that tell you? Okay. Well, that means that the patients that are coming in, they're being inspired, they're being taken care of, they're being heard. All right. Because the art in dentistry that I think a lot of practices miss is that we need to get to the bottom of what the patient wants, not just what we want to do. Okay. We can't be so concerned about, all of the steps without being primarily focused on what they want first. Okay. In fact, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, Dr. Abernathy, the other day, and he's a longtime dentist. If you've never heard of him, he was practicing back in the 70s through the 90s. He's helped a lot of practices, and he was telling me, he said, John, I had a lot of patients that would come in, and I would hear from other doctors, this is the patient they didn't want, right? They came in for one tooth. They needed all the stuff. They needed a full mouth restoration, but they came in for one tooth. And he said, I've met a lot of doctors over the years that would really frustrate. Like, they think they're spinning their wheels and they're not really getting anywhere because this person's only doing one tooth. And he says, I remember one person specifically that he would always come in and want a extraction. He would never want to do the root canals, never want to do the crowns. He never want to, restore the mouth, but he would want just the extractions, one after another and another and another. And he said, I'd happily do it. I mean, I was like, I would always, give him the option, told him what he needed, but at the end of the day, I wanted to do what he wanted. Well, about 3 to 4 years into their relationship, what happened was the guy came in and said, hey, Dr. Abernathy, can I talk to you real quick? He didn't have an appointment, all right? And he was like, hey, I was just curious. So unfortunately, my aunt died, but she left me $20,000, and I was just curious, could we fix my mouth? Could we give me a full mouth of teeth so that, I don't, have to worry about this long term. So long story short is that, when your staff is caring and compassionate and it's taking care of every patient in the way that they uniquely deserve, then this will happen. This $20,000 to $25,000 per month will happen. When we're overly focused on making a certain number, or we've got to have the right patients. Oh my gosh, have you ever been on like Instagram or Facebook or I don't know, in your email, and someone's like, dentist, do you have the best patients in your town? Oh my gosh, shoot me in the head. Okay. Holy moly. I mean, they're acting like there are patients walking around. They're going like, oh, hey, yeah, I don't want this insurance that I have. I don't even want to use it. I only like cash. And I want to pay top dollar for all my dentistry. And I only want to come in on the days that I have to work in the middle of the day. It just doesn't make sense, right? And so if we're not careful, we can inspire our patients out the door, which is when we get back to that, less than 20 to 30 new patients per month. But when we're doing this really, really well, we see our production going up. So what does this mean? Okay. So let's say take our 6 employees. Okay. On average, dentists across the nation have, about 6 employees working on 6 ops or so. And so, this would mean that with your 6 employees, you should be able to produce $150,000. And I'm just going to say, I've seen this, I've seen it all the time. Okay. I can't tell you how many practices that I've been to. In fact, I've had one in Oregon for a long time. And is a really great couple that worked there. They were almost in retirement. They were taking a time off every 6 weeks. Okay. They took a week off every 6 weeks, but they were doing over $100,000 per month with their 6 employees. And when the months that they had the full month, they were doing $150,000. And it was because they were treating people, and they were even seeing some Medicaid patients. So this is even possible in offices where you have some, the lower income, like sometimes people want to say, okay, well, my patients aren't able to do all this stuff. Well, I want to really challenge you on that thought here. So what if you don't have it? What if you're at that $13,000 mark? What if you're below that or right around it? Well, you need to work with a good coach. All right. A good coach will be able to go in and not try to sell you a program that brings in the right patients, right? No, they're going to teach you how to operate and to give the best patient services. That's what good coaches do. They help you with your processes and your systems in your office so that they can assist your staff to become the best dental professionals, right? So that's what you need. You need to find somebody that can do that for you. So that you can move that number up. Okay. All right. So here, hygienists, and by the way, I would share this. I would share this in any of these videos that you see with your staff. We're gonna email these out to you as we have the recordings and that kind of stuff. But what I find is that the more the team knows about the back end, okay, a lot of times as business owners, we want to hide some of those numbers. And I get it, because we don't, here's what your staff thinks. Your staff thinks, oh, we did $150,000 this month. You must be taking home $125,000 of it. It's sitting in your bank account, right? They have no concept of what it takes to actually run a business. All right. But when they do start to have a little better understanding, then they start to understand where they fit. Okay. In particular, hygienists. I've met hundreds of hygienists all over the nation, and most of them are producing between $600 and $800 a day. Okay. And many of them, I think that that's a really good thing. In fact, I'm sure you can go on a lot of sites and they're like, that's amazing. Okay. It's really not. And the reason, and it's not, it's kind of like, when, dentists are coming out of school these days, they're being told kind of how to do dentistry, not actually being shown and not actually being able to practice it, but very less than any of that, they're getting any business knowledge. Right. And so, a hygienist needs to be just they need to be taught. Okay. Look, a good hygienist produces $1,100 to $2,500 per day. Okay. Now you may be looking at these numbers and you might be thinking, well, I know those unicorns that can do these. I've seen this all across the nation. This is totally possible. And what has to happen when you see this, okay, if you're seeing that $600, $800 a day, okay, here's what's likely. All right. Either you have very few patients, but more often than not, you've got plenty of patients that are coming into hygiene. You don't have any room to put any new ones. Okay. You're probably, booked out 6 or more weeks for hygiene. They're taking an hour in every single appointment. That's what's happening. They've got hour-long appointments, and blink if I'm kind of getting close here. But they're not talking about scaling and root planing or periodontal disease. They're not, and if they are talking about it, it's kind of this like, you really should do it, but since you're not, I'm going to do like a bloody prophy, right? And so we're just kind of hand holding our patients and not really educating patients. Okay. The other thing is that we're not saving time for productive things like placing sealants. For whitening and that sort of thing. And I know a lot of you guys do whitening in your chair if you're doing whitening. But that in a lot of states, that's what a lot of hygienists do it because it's something that they can do in their chair. But the point is that there's a blend of procedures in the hygiene schedule. It's not just prophy. Okay. Now you can achieve a number like this with assisted hygiene. Okay. And if you've started down that road, You might even kind of thought to yourself, okay, this is better. This is better than having the $600 to $800 a day. Now I'm paying, one hygienist and an assistant, a little bit less to do all of this work, and I'm getting a little bit more. But I'll say this, in every single office that I've seen use assisted hygiene, the case acceptance rate for doctors has gone way down. Okay, your chair starts to get really open. It's just like, I don't know where all the patients are. And the reason is because the person who's most qualified to have a conversation with a patient about what they need is now in the next room. They're now doing all the things they have to do in the next room. And the person who's left in the room when the patient really has some questions is likely the person that's the least skilled in your office. It's the assistant you just hired, because you're just like, I need another assistant for this. And well, this isn't really difficult. We'll just push you in here. Okay. We can't do that. All right. We've got to really think about the patient experience and what they really need. And even though you could turn over rooms faster with assisted hygiene, you'll never inspire them near as much as if you have a single hygienist that's in there. Now, so what does it take to get to that $2,500 mark? You've got to really be good at patient education. And you as the doctors have to partner with your hygienists, okay? One of the best things that I've utilized over the years, and I got this from my friend Mike, and he would have the hygienist do this. As soon as they did this, the perio charting, and they found that they had depths of 4, 5, 6, whatever, and they did the X-rays and there was some bone loss, they would ask him, hey, how long have you had this infection? And of course, the patient doesn't really understand, like, what infection? What are you talking about? It's like, well, it's funny, it always surprises me that an infection this bad doesn't hurt, but it is there. And so then when the doctor comes in, the doctor will ask the same question, okay? Because he'll see the perio charting, he'll see the X-rays, like, hey, oh my gosh, hey Sally, how long have you had this infection? And she's like, I didn't know I had one until Julie told me, right? But really partnering with your hygienist to help people, because the reality is this: if we don't educate them, if we don't get their attention, they walk out, and one day they lose their teeth, right? Walking down the road, something happens, they chew on something, and it's like, they have something that happens that is, then now it's your fault. They're like, why didn't you tell me? And you're like, well, I did tell you. We told you, when you first came in, but we didn't get their attention. All right. So you really have to partner with your hygienist to do that. So make sure that you're doing that, in the process here. Okay. All right. So so one last thing on this one. Okay, so what do you do if you got a hygienist that's producing between $600 and $800? Okay, well, they need to be educated. All right, they need to find, like, I've got some. If you want to know some names of some hygienists that I know that can help, email me at the end here, and I'll connect you with them. I think it just really takes partnering with somebody. I've trained a lot of hygienists myself in this area to have a lot of success. So really, it's a lack of knowing. Okay, it's what we started off with. When you don't know what you don't know, you won't do it. All right. But as a hygienist, you can't just walk in and say, hey, by the way, you should be producing more, right? Wish you could do that. But instead, we're going to have to teach them, and you need somebody that can actually come up alongside them and do that for that to happen. Okay. All right. So the next one is this, okay? The 98% collection rate minimum. All right. So when so take your net collections. All right. Net and gross. All right. Gross would be the total that you got, right? The net would be, the total minus refunds. All right. So I know that, your accounting software, your practice software probably accounts for collection adjustments and production adjustments a little bit differently. Okay. So what I would do is I would call your practice software company and say, hey, I only want my collections adjustments to show refunds. That's it, nothing else. Okay. So that's going to be the way that you're going to be able to see what the number is, the real number. Okay. So it's the gross collections minus refunds. All right. And you're going to divide that into your net production. Okay. So gross production would be the sum total after your adjustments. That's where you get the net production. Okay. Because essentially your net production is everything that you could collect. All right. So I know sometimes there's a misconception about gross and net, and I think it's a little bit less common than some other misconceptions. But I know that sometimes doctors are looking at those numbers and going, okay, well, but we produce some more. Why so much? Why aren't we collecting as much? Now, if you take insurance, you're like, I know why. And so here's the deal. A little bit about insurance too is somebody asked a question in a thread the other day. They said, is 10 new patients a month good or bad? Okay. And I thought about this for a second. I was just like, okay, well, it really depends on how many new patients you're seeing. If that's the only, well, they say, is it good or bad if they are managed care or if they have your PPO or whatever. And the reality is that if those are the only 10 new patients you have, that's what you got. You got to take that. Okay. If it's, a third of your new patients, then take it. Now, if it's half or more, well, then you can start having conversations about, okay, well, do we need to really be on some of these plans? But here's the reality. Fee for service is kind of like this, the buffalo. they're not extinct, but they're not very common, right? And so you hear stories about it. I know you do, but being a provider for all insurances, you can still make a lot of money doing that. So so don't let anybody tell you that that's the kiss of death. It's not. What's the kiss of death is not collecting all the money. Okay. So you can produce, and if really, like we talked about last time in our scheduling webinar, if you organize your day well, you will produce at a high level. Okay, if you're not organized in the way that you manufacture your schedule, you're going to be all over the place. Okay, but regardless of what you produce, when you get to that net production number, you need to be collecting 98%. Here's why. Okay. How many of y'all have ever been to McDonald's? I'm probably not recently. You're probably like, I'd stay away from there. Okay, but I don't know, maybe love it. But I used to travel all the time. Travel a little bit less now, but I would go to these airports. There would be McDonald's there, and it would always make me laugh because when I would get in line, all right, and I would make my order, there would be a guy in the back putting all the stuff in there, the burgers and the fries and stuff like that, and he would literally hold the bag behind him, and he'd wait to see if I paid for my burger or not. Okay. Now you got to know in an airport setting, I'm sure somebody's like grabbed the food and I got to get my plate or something like that, right? But if it's that important for a guy at McDonald's to be holding on to the merchandise or the food before he gives the food to the customer, how much more important is it to know that a patient is going to be able to pay before we actually sit them in our chair? Okay. And the big miss here is that a lot of times people leave your office and they don't know how much it's going to cost. I guarantee you. Okay, there's many of you that are on here or watching this recording, and I want you to go to your front desk and just listen to what they talk about and see how many times they actually give an idea. And here's the thing: I hear front desk, and don't get me wrong, it goes back to that you don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of front desk people that are working that they don't realize they can give them an estimate. It's like, well, they have insurance. There's no way. It's like, yes, there's absolutely a way that you can do that. You can prepare your patients for what it's going to cost. I was at an office up in Milwaukee once, and this little old lady came in, and she was in pain, and her husband was right behind her, and and they were coming into the office, and they were so relieved that the doctor could fit them in. All right. And so, he was like, just kind of rubbing her shoulder a little bit, just like, it's going to be okay or whatever. And the assistant came back and picked her up and took her to the back. And he sat there and kind of just, I could see it. The relief was coming back to him, just like, thank God my wife is not going to be in pain anymore. Okay. And so she came up to the front. She was smiling ear to ear. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you how excited she was that the pain was gone. And then the assistant started to say, all right, ma'am, for your visit today, it's going to be $895. And that smile like disappeared in a heartbeat. And they both looked at each other. They were like, we had no idea it was going to be this much money. Nobody ever told us. Okay. That's why our collection percentages are low. Okay. Because we're not preparing our patients, or we're hoping that they're able to pay, but we're not really paying attention enough to say, okay, well, they have had a hard time in the past paying for all of their treatment, or we haven't even told them how much it's going to cost, and it's $2,000. Okay, so we really need to get good at the financial arrangement process. Again, if you're now follow me for a second, okay? If you're doing $1 million a year, all right, most offices are doing around $650,000 to $700,000 a year. That's an average for an average doctor, okay? But if you're doing $1 million a year, every percentage point that you don't collect is $10,000. Okay. I don't know about you. I threw up in my mouth a little bit just saying that. Okay. Because a lot of the practices I come to in the beginning have a 95% or less collection ratio. And everybody at the front desk is like high-fiving each other. Woohoo, this is awesome. And I have to break it to them like, well, okay, Because they're like, why is the doctor mad all the time? I'm like, well, there's $60,000 that's missing. I don't know if you know that. I know that it's over 90. That's great, but this is not a math score. This is business, and when you collect 98%, it's hard to do business. It's hard to do payroll. It's hard to do a lot of things. Okay, moving on here. All right, is this helpful? Hopefully, this is helpful. All right. All right, so the next thing here is recall effectiveness. All right, now this is the number that we kind of made up, but it's a number that you can rely on. All right, and so if you go into your practice software, you might want to write this down here. Okay, I would look at how many people came in the last 6 months for a prophy. Okay, so your 1110 and your 1120. Okay, how many people came in the last 6 months for the prophies? Okay, and then I would run a second report and look at how many people came in the last 4 months for a perio maintenance. Okay, and so from there, I would take that number and I would add that together. Okay, and so from there, I would add that number together and I would divide that into the number of patients that have come in the last 2 years. Okay, because if a patient hasn't been to your office in 2 years, not an active patient. Okay, and I know Dentrix is one of my favorite softwares, so don't get me wrong, but I like to give it a hard time. Okay, because what you can do with Dentrix is you can look back in your software and see how many patients that you have. It's like, I've got 10,000 patients. Yes, yes, yes. Like, no, you don't. That's how many people have ever come in your door. All right. So if we don't do a good job of making sure that we're purging our charts and that sort of stuff, then we get to that number, and we have this misconception of how many patients are coming. All right. So again, take those numbers. It's probably around the 40% range. Okay, 41% would be the average for recall effectiveness. Now, why does this matter? Okay, why is this a key performance indicator? Okay, you want 33% of the production in your office to come from hygiene. Okay, you want 33%. All right, and most of you, I would say, have somewhere between 15 to 20% coming from hygiene. And as we talked about earlier, if we are not careful, we have a low producing hygiene schedule that we think that, okay, they're not going to be able to do it. I'm going to have to do it all. And then we get on the hamster wheel and we're like over here trying to produce like a whole lot. And then we're looking around going, why don't we have any more to produce? And part of the reason is because we don't have more people coming to our hygiene chairs. Okay, it's a fix for a lot of things. If we can get to the 80% mark, then we have a lot of people coming into our hygiene all the time, and you're going to have a lot of dentistry that needs to happen for your patients over time, rather than just kind of these ups and downs that you might experience, month to month and that sort of thing. So that's why it's really important. So and it also is going to require more hygienists at some point. All right, you want to be adding hygienists and doctors over the years. All right, if some of you have these numbers and you're like, well, John, I have a lot of these numbers, and I can say that we're pretty good at a lot of these things and stuff like that, which is good, but you haven't gone to the next level. You haven't started to open up time in another chair for hygiene. You haven't done, started opening up time for another associate. And so, if you do have all these numbers, that's kind of what it's telling you. It's like it's time for you to do some more growth work. Okay, but many of you need to be in the habit of looking at these numbers so that you could go, okay, we want to add more people to hygiene. So what is this going to take? All right, two things are going to help. All right, this is for free. I'm going to give you this for free. For the rest of you, everything else I'm going to pay for, or you're going to have to pay for. Just kidding. So first thing is this: offering a warranty on all of your dental work. Okay. Now you might go, well, we do that, don't we? We do that, right? It may be a year, right? For a year, you can come in and get all your work done. If something breaks or something like that. Well, in our offices, what we did is we did a 5-year warranty, so long as they came back to all of their future recall appointments. Okay, and so what do you have to do? All right, can you write it down in a note here, or put it on the treatment plan or the financial arrangement or the receipt? You can't do that. Okay, somebody has to tell them, hey, Mrs. Jones, I'm so glad you came in today. Man, doesn't your work look beautiful? Okay, if you're not taking before and after pictures on your work, you really need to be doing that. Not because you're going to put it in a book somewhere, although you should. It's because you want to be able to show your patient what happened. This was your tooth before. Hey, look at it now. What do you think? Okay. They're way more likely to refer to you if they see the work, right? Rather than, you can show them the mirror. If that's all you got, show them the mirror. But I'd take before and after intraoral pictures and show them what happened, right? But hey, here's the thing, Mrs. Jones. We want to make sure that this lasts for as long as it can. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a 5-year warranty on this work, so long as you come back to all your future recall appointments. I see actually that we don't have you yet scheduled for a cleaning. Why don't we go ahead and get that scheduled right now so that you can take advantage of the warranty? Okay. That's going to speak volumes. That's going to work. People are going to be like, oh yes, absolutely. They want the warranty. They don't want to pay for a warranty, right? It's not like, hey, if you add $150 to this, I'll warranty it for 5 years. No, they're going to pay over time for their cleanings, but you want their participation in their office for several reasons. Number one, okay, they need it. All right. The people that come in on a regular basis are going to be far more likely to have good oral health than the people that don't. You know that. Okay. You're a doctor. You know that, right? But so we don't get any points for just hoping they come back. All right, let's make it appealing for them to come back so that they will come back for their appointments. All right. Second thing is this. Okay, if you're not doing that, all right, which I think every one of you should. All right, there's no reason you shouldn't. All right. Second thing is you have to be looking ahead of time in your office when patients come in. Do they have a recall appointment? Okay, you can't skip this step. All right, and I know that every office is created differently, right? And the team really can put a little bit more time and attention, if they're not already doing it, in looking at the patients coming in today or tomorrow. Okay, and I would put that on the team. Here's what usually happens: somebody at the front desk or a superstar assistant is putting together the morning huddle. They've gone through all the patients. They've seen all the things. Okay, this person owes money. This person needs a hygiene appointment. This person needs to come back for full mouth reconstruction. Don't forget to tell them this. Oh, this person don't forget that they need this appliance on the way out. Yada yada yada. Okay, you've got one person doing that. The problem is that one person isn't everywhere. Okay, we need the entire team to be participating in this. This has got to happen. And if we don't do this, then what we'll see is a lot of people sleeping in that morning huddle, right? But more likely they're sleeping at the wheel when the patient's actually in the operatory. Because you as the doctor, you need to know these things, and they need to communicate with you, right? And so wouldn't it be cool if your assistant was like, hey, Dr. Nicole, I noticed that Sue doesn't have a cleaning scheduled here. Is that important for her to go ahead and get scheduled today? Yes, absolutely. We need that. I think we definitely need to do that. Okay. I want to make sure all the work that I'm doing is going to be, well protected, yada, yada, yada. Partner with each other to get the result that you want. Okay. So that's recall effectiveness. I see something in the chat. I can't see the actual, what the actual comment was, but I will get to it. I promise. Okay. All right. All right. So here's another benchmark. All right. You want to have at least one doctor per every 2,000 patients. Okay, so you may have heard the metric that you want to, if you're starting a practice or buying a practice, you want to be in an area where the ratio of dentists to population is 1 to 2,000. Okay, what this means is that there's enough demand in your area that you will have patients coming to you. Okay, now here's the reality. Most of you are working Monday through Thursday, 8 to 5, okay, or 8:30 to 5:30. I don't know, okay. And I'm not just talking to people that are on the webinar. You guys might actually be working different hours, okay. But most people who are watching this, you guys are working 8 to 5 Monday through Thursday. And what we don't realize or even think about sometimes is that our patients work Monday through Friday 8 to 5. And in an economy like we have right now, which I hope is going to get better, but we have to take off of work, right? And so now our patients have to take off of work. And when you have so many people who are vying for jobs, people who are leaving work when it's inconvenient are all of a sudden looked at and like, well, I know certain states, you guys are well protected for that kind of stuff, and others not quite as much. But you've got to really pay attention to, when am I open? All right, because even if you opened up, one of your days or two of your days at 7 o'clock in the morning and went to 3 or 7 to 4 or something like that, or you opened up, a Friday or a couple Fridays a month, I tell you what, here's what would happen. This is what's going to happen. If you open up Friday and Saturday, and especially if nobody else is open up in your town, you're going to get all the new patients. They're going to want to come to you. Everybody's looking to get off of work on a Friday, and more people are like, okay, it's a Friday, no big deal. You can leave a little bit early, right? But they want to be out of the office on Friday, and they want to go to a place that is convenient for them. All right. I talked to another doctor just very recently yesterday, and he was telling me that hey, I'm actually open Fridays and Saturdays. What I've found is that most of the people that live in my town actually drive down to the big city. They drive down to Dallas during the week. And before I opened up on Fridays and Saturdays, they would go to a dentist down there because that was more convenient for them. They could just go off in their on their lunch break, because none of us were open Friday and Saturday in their hometown. But as soon as I opened up Friday and Saturday in our hometown, they started coming to me because they didn't want to go to a dentist out there. They didn't want to have to get off work. They were just coming to me because I was convenient, and they didn't want to take their kids out of school. So just saying, just pay attention to that kind of stuff. So when you have $2,000 or $2,000 patients in your active patient base, it's time to start looking at expanding. Okay, and not like buying new, not breaking down walls and starting new operatories and stuff like that, but expanding your hours. Okay, because that's one of the things that we need to realize is that before you expand your space, you need to be expanding your hours. Okay, there's no reason to pay more for space, okay, than you need to, when you can open up more hours and use that same space, okay, that's sitting there when it's dead, and make money on it, right? So inviting a single day of a doctor's schedule, okay, or and here's the deal: if you're open on those Fridays and Saturdays, here's what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you'll probably be able to find a doctor to work a Friday or a Saturday because they're working Monday through Thursday somewhere else. Okay, so that will be a good way to grow your schedule with a doctor without having to promise them all your patients Monday through Thursday. How many of y'all have ever done that? Blink if you've done that before. You're like, I was trying to bring on an associate, it was crowded, and it didn't really work out the way that we wanted it to. But 2,000 patients, you should start looking at, okay, well, in the coming months, when you get to that 2,500 mark, especially, we need to have another day or so of doctor time. Okay. All right, and like I said, most people don't know how many patients they have because their practice software, if they're not actually purging their chart, they don't do a good job of that. Okay. All right. Next couple things here. All right. So $600 to $750 per doctor hour. Okay, and the average is less than $500 an hour. All right. Now, if you're not doing this, it probably means you're not saving time for your major case work. Okay. We consider any major case work anything over the cost of a crown or higher. Okay, and you need to have 60% of your day wrapped up in that. Okay, in the major work. All right, and when you do that, that's when you can get to these numbers here. When you throw spaghetti at a wall, or you throw just patients on the schedule, just fill it up, 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 and your book's solid, but there's no method to the madness, you're probably going to land around that 500 or less mark. Okay, but really achieving this is going to give you a lot more freedom. All right, freedom in a lot of ways. Number one, it's going to reduce a lot of stress because you are able to pay your bills. Number one, and number two, maybe save without having to do way more work. Okay, you can do this without opening up more hours, right? In fact, you need to do this before you open up more hours. Okay, but you want to make sure that you're positioning your time with major case work 60% of your day so that you can get up to this 600 to 750 hour per mark. Okay, what if you don't have it? What is it telling you? Okay, it's telling you you need to look at your schedule and how to maximize that. In fact, I'm doing a scheduling master class that's coming up. The registration ends on the 24th, I believe. Okay, this month, maybe it's 26th. I'll have to take a look. But that's one thing you need to do. You need to actually look at a strategy to produce more in your chair versus going to your front desk and just tell them, hey, we're not doing enough. Okay, because when they hear that, they think more bodies, more work, more, just put them in there, right? But we need them to think, okay, we need to actually put the right things in there. Okay. This also is an indicator that, again, they need some more training. All right. One of the worst things that I think I see in a lot of dental offices before I get there is that you've got good employees. All right. But they don't operate well together. All right. It's kind of like, you ever seen any of these dream teams, basketball teams? The first one was amazing, right? And I'm an old guy, so Jordan, all those guys, my favorite dream team. Nobody's going to stop it. Kobe be the second one. Okay, doesn't matter. But you have some of these guys or some of these dream teams that go out there, and they all just want to be the superstar. They don't want to share the ball. They want to score all the points and all that kind of stuff. And you have dental teams like that where you've got really good assistants that are really good at what they do, and yeah, I teach you how to do this, but it's easier if I just go do it myself. Or a front desk person, an office manager, who's very well-meaning, that wants to be able to carry the load and doesn't want to overburden other people and all that kind of stuff, but really needs to learn to lead people versus do everything for them. Think about office manager for a second. An office manager, by the title, you ought to be, well, office leader is what I would call them. They need to be leading people. When you manage people, people don't like to be managed. Okay, they don't like that, but they do want to be inspired. And you guys, and I want to say this for all the dentists that are on here that aren't business owners, you guys are leaders, whether you like it or not. Okay, I know that there are some of you that want to come in right at the time you start and leave right at the time you end, and that may seem okay, and it might be good for your lifestyle. It's not good for your business, and what I mean your business, like. You want to be a good partner, whether you ever want to own or not. You want to be a good partner with your owner, because when you start to understand the business of dentistry, two things really will happen. Number one, the business itself will improve, but let's be honest, you're going to improve in your ability to produce and collect in the office. Period. That's going to go up because you're partnering with the owner, and you're really thinking like an owner. It does you no good to think like an associate that has no skin in the game. All right. And now I don't know everybody's situation, and I don't know, there's some, I hear there's some, not so good environments to be working in, and so you might want to just be leaving. But if you're working with an owner doctor, especially a private owner doctor, really partner with that person and really start to learn from the wisdom that they have. Okay, because you get a lot of wisdom from actually building your own business and making sure that you can you pay your bills, and not only that, but pay yourself and create something for your family. So, all right, let's see how I'm doing on time here. Okay, got about 8 more minutes here, and then we'll get to some question and answers. So if you haven't already put your question and answer or questions in the chat, I'll get to the answers here in just a little bit. In fact, we're wrapping up here right now. We'll get to the question and answers here right now. So what is a good next step? Now, there's more things that I would encourage you. And before we get to this part right here, okay, one of the things that you heard me say earlier about the staff compensation is you want to have $25,000 per team member. Okay, and I use the example, if you're producing $100,000 in the office per month, then you want to be spending $25,000 on your team. Okay, well, that's because we want to keep that compensation cost at 25%. All right, I think most of you are probably going to be running 35% or higher for your compensation costs. And I know right now it's hard. It's hard to people want more money, right? You've got fewer dental professionals are out there, and people want more money. But we need to expect a little bit more out of them in order to get to where we want to go, and not just expect it. Okay, we can't just expect it. We've got to equip them. And if you don't know how to do that, then hire a professional that can help equip them to do that, because that will be your fastest way to equip them all at once. And when I started talking about the dream team, kind of what I see is that when you've got these superstars on your team, surrounded by those that are mediocre or something like that, it puts a lot of stress on that one person and on you. And over time, that stress turns into turnover. Okay, because people don't want to feel like they're a burden to other people. But here's the deal: when you train, you want to train the right people. In fact, there's a really good book, Good to Great, by Jim Collins. He wrote it, a decade or 2 decades ago. But he talks about getting the right people on the bus, and you do want the right people on the bus. But when you train a team and your lowest level person goes up, a rising tides raises all ships. Okay, if you can start to raise the level of all of your players in your office, then you're going to see improvement throughout the office. So it's something worth investing in so that you can get the results that you're looking for and hit these markers that we're talking about here. A couple other things: marketing costs. If you're already seeing the 50 to 20 or yeah the 50 to 75 new patients, I'm assuming you're going to be running a marketing cost between 3 and 5% per month. Okay. If you're a brand new office and you're seeing that much, you're probably running at 10%. Okay. But when you evaluate your marketing costs and you're looking at, okay, well, should I be spending more marketing? Yes, I've got the right people answering the phones. I don't have a broken system. Then you want to start off in that 5% range if you want to be in a growth mode. But I want to invite you guys. There's a few more that I'm not going to get to here, but go ahead and email me. Okay, this is my email. Go ahead and screenshot this screen right here. It's john.ruddy@omni-pg.com. And you can ask me for any of these things here. Number one, I'm happy to sit with you and do a free practice assessment with you. So if you heard some of these numbers and you're like, okay, John, I really want to dive into my own practice and see, what is it? Where are we at? What do I need to do next? The indicator should indicate something, right? And so now I've given you an idea of what the indicators are. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of idea of, okay, well, should I be hiring right now? Should I be expanding? What should I be doing? Again, if you're below a lot of these numbers, then I think you need some good coaching in order to get there. But I'd be happy to do an assessment with you to see how how we could either partner together, improve your practice, or just give you some good action steps for you to move forward on. Okay. Next thing is a free practice evaluation. Omni has got 3 certified evaluators, and they go to CE every year. And so they've evaluated over 500 practices all over the nation and in Canada as well. So they are just top notch. And if you want a free practice valuation, you may think to yourself, well, hey, yes, please, I want it right now. Okay, then go ahead and email me. You might also think to yourself, well, I'm not sure I need one right now. I'm kind of in the middle of my career, or I'm not sure I'm close to to wanting to sell. It's not about selling your practice. It's about finding the value of your practice. Because think about this for a second. If you're in the middle of a journey, let's just say you're going to from Texas to New York, okay, but you never look at the GPS. You're just going. I'm going in a direction. I think I'm going that direction, but you never know if you're hitting the direction you want to go. It's like the GPS. It's going, okay, this is what the value of your practice is right now, because you have that idea in your mind that maybe, hey, I want to sell for this much. I want my practice to be worth this much. Let's see where it is right now so that you can make a good plan to get to where you want to be for your future. Or you might even see, you might be at that stage where you're like, you know what, I think this is good. I might want to market it and put it up for sale. And Omni can help you with that as well. And the last thing is this here. I've got a really cool, this is free for all of you guys. It's a really cool spreadsheet. It's called an income and expense summary. And what it will do is it's going to break up all of your expenses, your profit and loss into about 6 different categories. And it'll allow you to see on the page what percentage am I spending. And it'll also you'll be able to see some of these practice indicators that I put here that you can go, okay, in one spot, you can see, okay, this is what my revenue looks like. This is what my operating spending looks like. This is what, is coming to me before all the taxes and all the income or the loans and all the expenses on the back end. And then you'll see, okay, well, this is how I'm doing with my production per operatory, per employee. It's a really good little spreadsheet here. I'd be happy to send it to you, but you're welcome to just email me that, or email me and say, hey, I want the income and expense summary. But you guys, my highest encouragement for you is this. Well, first of all, congratulations for being on this. Okay, you're going to be a better practice owner because you've been on this, and you have more tools in your tool belt to be able to really move forward. When you have the right knowledge of your numbers, you can make good decisions for your future. It's when you're trying to just throw things at the page area, because here's the reality. How many times has an assistant or a hygienist or somebody come to you and say, hey, we need more help. I need you to hire, we need an assistant, for, to do sterilization or whatever. they're ever trying to get you to, to do something, well, now you know. Okay. So, all right. If you have any questions, go ahead and put it in the Q&A here. I'm happy to assist you guys. In fact, I'm going to close this up. So I'm going to stop the recording. So I'm not going to, end. But thanks for you guys for being on this. I'm going to stop the recording and we'll get to your question and answers. Again, I'm John Ruddy. I'm that dentist guy, and this Omni has put this on. So appreciate them for partnering with us.